Luffy, Law, and Kid were three of the most powerful captains of the worst generation, but what if they had been together from the very beginning? What if they grew up side by side and sailed as one pirate crew? How would that change the world of One Piece? So everything begins in Fuchsia Village, but this time Luffy isn't growing up alone. Through three different twists of fate, three boys around the same age all end up in that same quiet little village. And these three are going to grow into something the world has never seen before. Luffy, of course, is the local, the loud, grinning, rubber-limbed kid who idolizes Shanks and has already decided he's going to be the king of the pirates. Then there's Trafalgar Law, a cold, sharp, calculating kid who's brilliant far beyond his years and always 3 steps ahead. And finally, there's Eustace Kid, a wild, hot-tempered kid with a mean streak, a mile wide, who refuses on principle to look up to anyone. Their pasts are their own mysteries, and none of them talk much about how they ended up in Fuchsia. And here's what makes this trio so different. All three of them are born leaders, which means instead of one alpha and a couple of followers, you've got three boys constantly butting heads over who's in charge. Law and Kid especially can't stand each other. One a cold schemer and the other a hot-blooded brawler. Basically a fight waiting to happen at all times. But right in the middle of them is Luffy, too dumb and too sincere to play their games, and somehow that's the exact thing that holds all three together. Through chaos and scraps and 100 dumb adventures, Law patching them up, Kid building weapons out of scrap, and Luffy dragging them into every fight, three rivals slowly becoming brothers. But not everyone in Fuchsia gets along so easily, because while Luffy idolizes Shanks and hangs on every word the man says, Kid absolutely cannot stand him. Where Luffy sees a hero, Kid sees a big-name pirate coasting on reputation, and he makes no secret of it. It all comes to a head in the bar one day when a young kid mouths off directly to Shanks, challenging him, refusing to back down, daring him to do something about it. And Shanks just laughs it off. He ruffles the kid's hair and moves on like it's nothing. And that, the casual dismissal, that feeling of not being taken seriously, plants a grudge in Kid that he's going to carry with him for years. He decides then and there that one day he'll make Shanks take him seriously, whether the old pirate likes it or not. Of course, Fuchsia wouldn't be Fuchsia without the moment we all know. Higuma the bandit still causes trouble. Luffy still ends up dragged into the sea by a Sea King, and Shanks still dives in without a second of hesitation and loses his arm saving him. But this time, three boys stand on the dock watching a man give up his arm without hesitation for someone he cares about. And when Shanks places the straw hat on Luffy's head and tells him to return it one day when he's become a great pirate, all three of them feel the weight of it. Even Kid, as much as he'd rather die than admit it. That hat becomes a symbol for the whole trio. And then comes the night that set everything in motion. Sitting around a fire, the three boys make a pact, but not three separate dreams like you might expect. Just one. They're going to sail together as one crew, and they are going to find the One Piece. Not as rivals racing each other to the top, but as brothers clinging toward the same summit, with Luffy as captain and Law and Kid as his right and left hands. Three monsters, one flag, one dream. One day, a pirate ship wrecks off the coast of Fuchsia, and among the cargo that washes ashore are two strange, ominous-looking fruits. The boys find them, none of them having the slightest idea what they are. And on a dare, it's Law, always the curious, clinical one, who eats the first. And to everyone's shock, he discovers the power of the Opi Opi no Mi, one of the rarest and most coveted devil fruits in the entire world. And Kid, being Kid, refuses to be outdone or let Law have something he doesn't. So he immediately grabs and devours the second fruit, awakening the magnetic powers that will one day make him a nightmare on the battlefield. Luffy, meanwhile, still gets his rubber powers the way he always did, from the Red Hair Pirate's treasure. And from there, the three of them spend their childhood learning to control these abilities together. Law's surgical genius, Kid's brutal, inventive style, and Luffy's raw physical monstrousness, all growing side by side, each one pushing the other two to get stronger. By the time they're old enough to set sail, all three are already terrifying. And unlike the story we know, they don't leave separately. They leave Fuchsia together, as one crew from day one, already bonded, already dangerous, already carrying a dream big enough to shake the world. The village watches them go, knowing full well that these three are going to leave a mark on history. As they sail out into the world, the crew begins to fill out. They pick up a blend of familiar faces, some who would have been Straw Hats, some who would have been Heart Pirates, and some who would have sailed under the Kid Pirates, all now gathered under a single massive flag with three heavyweight captains at the top. This crew attracts a level of talent that no single one of them ever could have alone. And then they hit the Grand Line, and the world gets its first real taste of what these three can do. Take Alabasta. In the story we know, Luffy fought Crocodile 3 separate times, lost twice, and nearly died before scrapping out a win. This time, it's not even close, because Crocodile's entire game, his Sand Logia body, and his ability to dry out anything he touches gets hard countered by this trio from every possible angle. Law can bypass his intangibility completely, opening a room and simply cutting him apart through space itself. Kid can pin him down with raw magnetic force and batter him with metal he can't turn to sand. And Luffy brings the overwhelming physical power on top of it all. What took an entire arc and multiple brushes with death in canon becomes the three brothers dismantling one of the 7 warlords with almost contemptuous ease. And word of it spread across the entire Grand Line. 3 rookies just tore apart a warlord like it was nothing. Then there's Skypiea and the self-proclaimed god Enel. Enel is one of the scariest early enemies in the whole story. A lightning Logia who genuinely believed he's a god. And in the original tale, it was only Luffy's rubber body that saved the day. Here, it turns into a complete humbling. Luffy is immune to the lightning as always and wades right in, grinning the whole time. But now Luffy can teleport and rearrange the entire battlefield, slipping around Enel's mantra and his ability to see attacks coming. And Kid, a man who commands metal and magnetism, does something devastating with all that lightning and all that iron in the ruins, turning Enel's own element and the island itself against him. The god complex shatters completely as 3 kids from a nothing little village take him apart. And Enel doesn't just lose, he's left utterly humiliated, and this becomes the pattern. Enemy after enemy who should have been a massive art-defining threat to get steamrolled because nobody in the world is prepared to face 3 future Emperor-level captains who fight like a single mind. Their powers interlock perfectly. Law's spatial control, Kid's magnetic destruction, and Luffy's gear techniques all covering each other's weaknesses. Law can teleport Kid into striking range. Kid can hurl Luffy across a battlefield like a wrecking ball. Luffy can create the openings the other 2 need to land the finishing blows. It's a combination that is very nearly impossible to counter. Naturally, the world takes notice fast. 3 of the most dangerous rookies in a generation, all on the same crew, all from the same tiny village. The world government flags them as a top-tier threat almost immediately, and their combined bounty climbs to staggering history-making numbers. But to understand where the crew's story goes next, we have to talk about something enormous that had already rocked the world in the background: the Paramount War at Marineford. In this timeline, Luffy never knew Ace, so he had no reason to go, and the Great War played out without him. Whitebeard fell, and in the chaos of it all, Marshal D. Teach, the man they call Blackbeard, killed the old emperor and stole the power of the Gura Gura no Mi, adding it to his own Yami Yami no Mi. Now Blackbeard sits among the emperors, wielding 2 of the most terrifying devil fruits in existence, and he has become one of the most dangerous men alive. And a while after Marineford, one man sets out to do something about it. Shanks, the red-haired emperor, goes hunting for Blackbeard directly, determined to settle things before Teach can grow any more powerful than he already has. And this is exactly when the crew crosses paths with him. Luffy, Law, and Kid run straight into the middle of Shanks' hunt, and they find the emperor in serious trouble, because Blackbeard's monstrous double fruit power is pushing even Shanks to his absolute limit. The crushing gravity of the Gura Gura no Mi and the endless void of the Yami Yami no Mi combining into something almost impossible to stand against. Luffy doesn't hesitate for a second. It's Shanks, and there's no version of this where he doesn't dive in to help. Kid, on the other hand, resists hard. Why the hell would he cross an ocean for that guy, the one who laughed him off all those years ago? But he comes anyway, grumbling the entire way, and Law follows with his usual detached amusement at the 2 of them. And then the moment arrives. Blackbeard, sensing victory, lines up a killing blow meant to end Shanks right there. And out of everyone in the world who could have stopped it, it's Kid who throws himself into the path with a clear, roaring display of magnetic power. Kid rips the attack apart and shields the man he spent his whole childhood resenting. Luffy and Law crash in right behind him, and the 3-captain synergy hits Blackbeard so hard and so fast that the Emperor is forced to retreat rather than risk everything against all 3 of them at once. And in the quiet after the fight, there's a moment between Kid and Shanks. Shanks looks at him, really looks at him this time, and acknowledges him for real, with no laughing it off and no ruffling his hair, just genuine, honest respect for the man who just saved his life. And Kid, who spent years wanting exactly that acknowledgement, doesn't quite know what to do with it. He grumbles, he looks away, and he mutters that he only did it so that he could be the one to beat Shanks himself someday. But something has shifted. The grudge that started in a tiny village bar all those years ago has finally, quietly resolved. But the crew is far from done, because there are still 2 more emperors standing between them and their dream. And the trio decides to go straight at both of them at once. Big Mom and Kaido, the 2 strongest emperors in the world, allied together. The single most dangerous tag team the seas have ever produced. And Luffy, Law, and Kid sail their whole crew right up to their doorstep and declare war. At first it goes badly. Even for these 3, taking on 2 emperors at the same time is a wall unlike anything they've hit before. Kaido's monstrous durability shrugs off their opening assault like it was nothing. His Conquerors infused club sending all 3 of them flying. Big Mom's elemental souls, his homies, and her sheer inhuman toughness make her almost impossible to pin down. The trio gets battered, separated, and pushed into the absolute edge of their limits. And for one moment, watching them get overwhelmed, it genuinely looks like the 3 brothers finally bit off more than they could chew. And then they start fighting the way only they can. Law opens a massive room across the entire battlefield, and suddenly the trio is teleporting everywhere at once, swapping positions in an instant, appearing and vanishing, keeping both emperors completely off balance. Kid uses his magnetism to rip Kaido's own weapons out of his hands and pull entire mountains of metal out of the earth, hurling them at both Yonko and locking them in place. And Luffy, shifting into his gear techniques, becomes the hammer, landing blow after blow, Wreath and Conqueror's Haki, the kind of hits that finally, for the first time, make the two strongest emperors in the world actually stagger. So the trio makes a bold call. Divide and conquer. Kid squares off against Big Mom head-on, matching her monstrous durability with his own relentless destruction, using his magnetism to turn the entire island into a weapon he can throw at her. Law becomes the field controller, cutting, teleporting, disrupting, and appearing between the two emperors to make absolutely sure they can never fully support each other. And Luffy locks on to Kaido for the duel the whole world has been waiting for. The boy who would be Pirate King against the strongest creature walking the earth. Kid's fight with Big Mom is a brutal, grinding war of attrition. She knocks him down again and again, but every time he gets back up, he hits harder than before, dragging more and more metal out of the island until he's burying the Emperor under the weight of an entire landscape. And with one final colossal magnetic assault, every scrap of iron on the island crashing down at once, Kid brings Big Mom down. A statement to the entire world that the hot-tempered kid from Fuchsia belongs at the very top. And Luffy's fight with Kaido is everything you'd dream it would be. The two of them trade absolutely titanic blows, each one cratering the battlefield and shaking the island to its foundations. Kaido knocks Luffy down and Luffy gets back up. Kaido knocks him down again, and again Luffy rises, grinning through the blood, refusing to stay down no matter what the strongest creature in the world throws at him. And in the end, with his gear techniques pushed to their absolute peak and his Conqueror's Haki blazing, Luffy lands a single, final earth-shattering punch that drops Kaido for good. And through all of it, Law is the reason it works. He's teleporting his brothers out of the path of fatal blows, cutting the Emperors apart at the exact right moments, and keeping Big Mom and Kaido from ever combining their power. It's the unglamorous, brilliant, absolutely essential genius that ties the entire victory together. The quiet third piece that makes the whole thing possible. And when the dust finally settles, the three brothers are standing tall over the two fallen emperors, together, exactly the way they swore they would as kids, around a fire in Fuchsia Village. Two of the strongest Yonko in the world, defeated in a single war by three brothers from one tiny, nothing little village in the East Blue. The whole world reels at the news because everyone understands what it means. A new era has arrived on the seas, and it belongs to Luffy, Law, and Kid. But being at the very top of the world makes you a target like nothing else, because while the trio is riding higher than ever, gathering the road poneglyphs that Big Mom and Kaido have been hoarding, drawing more allies to their flag, and edging closer to the secrets of the final island, there's one emperor still lurking in the shadows who never forgot the day they forced him to retreat. Marshal D. Teach. Blackbeard had escaped the crew once, back during Shank's hunt, and he had spent every day since only growing more dangerous, hunting power, picking off targets, and building his forces with the patience of a man who knows exactly what he wants. And now with the trio sitting at the summit of the pirate world and holding the road poneglyphs he covets, Blackbeard finally sets his sights on them directly. The collision that was only postponed the first time becomes inevitable. And this time, there's no Shanks to interrupt it and no rescue coming. Just the trio and their crew against the full might of the Blackbeard pirates. It's an all-out war. Blackbeard's titanic captains, his monstrous powerful commanders, crash into the crew, and the whole battlefield erupts into a series of brutal clashes. But this is where growing up together truly pays off. The crew that Luffy, Law, and Kid built, hardened across every fight that came before, matches and overwhelms Blackbeard's commanders one by one until every last one of them is left beaten in the dirt. And at the center of it all, the three brothers take on Blackbeard himself. He wields two of the most terrifying devil fruits in existence, the crushing quakes of the Gura Gura no Mi and the endless swallowing void of the Yami Yami no Mi, and pushes the three of them harder than almost anyone ever has. But they aren't the crew he barely escaped last time. They're Emperor Slayers now, and their synergy is flawless. Law bends space itself to slip past the darkness. Kid buries Teach under mountains of metal the quake can't stop, and Luffy, gear techniques blazing, lands the final thunderous blow. His captains defeated, and his own monstrous power finally broken, Blackbeard goes down, and this time there's nothing left for him to run. The trio stands victorious over the Emperor who once forced them to flee, but they barely have a moment to catch their breaths, because over Blackbeard's fallen body, the air itself changes. A crushing ancient presence descends on the battlefield, heavier and colder than anything they've faced all day. Heavier even than Blackbeard was. The exhausted battle-worn trio slowly turns and they realize their war has drawn the attention of the one force they were never ready for. The world government has finally decided to step out of the shadows. One of the five elders has come in person, J. Garcia Saturn, and he reveals the monstrous truth the world has never been allowed to see. This isn't some frail old man in a robe. Saturn's body twists and swells into a terrifying, inhuman true form. A massive dark spider-like horror that towers over the wreckage, radiating a power on a completely different plane from anything the trio has ever faced. And the timing could not possibly be worse. After an entire war against Blackbeard and his crew, Luffy, Law, and Kid are running on fumes, barely standing, and now they're staring down something that treats even their Emperor-slaying strength like a child's game. They fight anyway, of course, because that's simply who they are. But wounded, drained, and up against a being that has guarded the world's darkest secrets for 800 years. They simply can't find an opening. Saturn shrugs off their best combined attacks like they're nothing, and picks the three of them apart piece by piece. Law's space bending, Kid's mountains of metal, and Luffy's Haki weathered blows. Saturn weathers all of it, and for the first time in a very long time, it genuinely starts to look like this is where the dream ends. The three brothers from a tiny village finally facing against something too big to beat. And then a familiar Conqueror's Hockey floods the entire battlefield. Shanks arrives, the red-haired Emperor crashing down between Saturn and the crew, blade already drawn, and in that instant, the debt comes full circle. The man Kid saved from Blackbeard is now standing between the crew and certain death. There's a single look exchanged between Kid and Shanks across the battlefield. No words needed, none possible. The grudge that started in a Fuchsia bar all those years ago now buried for good. The favor repaid in both directions. What follows is a clash between two of the most powerful forces in the entire world. Shanks and Saturn trade colossal, earth-shaking blows, each impact tearing the battlefield apart, the sky itself seeming to buckle under the weight of it, but neither of them can finish it here. Saturn can't easily cut down a Yonko standing at full strength, and even Shanks knows better than to fully commit against one of the world's true rulers on a battlefield like this. So the two of them size each other up across the wreckage, and by some cold, unspoken understanding, both pull back. Saturn withdraws into the shadows he crawled out of, while Shanks lowers his blade, neither side giving an inch. This was never going to be settled today. And as the presence of the warrior god fades from the battlefield, the exhausted trio is left standing, battered, bloodied, but unbroken, with an emperor at their backs and the wreckage of two defeated forces around them. But the message could not be clearer. The world government's true power has finally shown its face. The secret rulers who have watched from the shadows of 800 years are done watching, and the real war, the war for the One Piece, and for the truth of the entire world is only just beginning. Make sure to subscribe and smash that like button for more One Piece videos.